MotorWeek is made possible by Tire Rack. Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome everyone to MotorWeek podcast number 129. We have an unusually large group in our Studio C at MotorWeek Central today. Our writer-producer, Brian Robinson.
Hello, John.
Our road test producer, Ben Davis.
Cello.
Assistant producer, Greg Carlos.
That is me.
He's the guy with the hair. Writer, Patrick Lucas.
I'm the guy with the hat.
And our new FYI reporter, Lauren Morrison. And we'll introduce her in a little bit. But right now we're going to get right into the show. We have a lightning round, a viewer question, our chance to rant and rave. But first, some of the cars that have coming across our parking lot. Okay, everybody. 2016 Chevrolet Camaro G6. Is that right, Brian?
G6.
I mean, it's the sixth generation.
Camaro 6 hashtag.
I thought maybe it was the Pontiac version.
I thought Oprah was going to start handing them out.
I saw you perk up there. That got your attention.
Like, whoa.
Okay, new Camaro versus we already have plenty of experience in new Mustang. What do you think of the car, and how do you think it's going to fare?
It's solid. I mean, I got the chance to drive it from Philadelphia to Raleigh on their Find New Roads road trip. And I got to say, I enjoyed it.
You weren't even in the top dog car.
No, I wasn't even in the SS. We had drawn keys out of a hat, literally.
Yeah.
And I got a V6 manual. And
but you had the 6
You should tell me more about those later. But first,
next podcast.
Yeah. V6 manual, and so pretty much they just let you drive wherever, and I brought it back here on some familiar roads, and it's a darn good car in pretty much every scenario.
Can you compare it to the previous one, structure-wise?
It is now on the ATS chassis, which we know is a very competent chassis. It's lighter, which it looks lighter, absolutely, and it actually is. It's, I think, up to 400 pounds lighter on the base
Depending on which
car.
one you get. Yeah.
And then everything else is, I think, at least 200 pounds lighter.
So would you buy that or Mustang? That's really the only question anyone really wants to know.
It certainly makes my choice harder. I would say Mustang up until I drove this one, but
wow,
it really, and I can't compare because I have only driven a V8 Mustang, so I'd have to drive the SS first to really say. But the V6 is actually a really good engine, and I think I'd mentioned it before. But if you go in not really sure if you want a V6 or a V8. I'm not sure how many people are going to do that, but I mean, you could save some money and be pretty happy with the V6.
But the base car is now a Turbo 4.
Yep, Turbo 4.
Which the base Mustang is still a 6, and the Turbo 4 is an option.
Mm-hmm. It's the 2-liter turbo, I think, out of the Malibu.
Well, no, it's actually out of the ATS as well.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, that's a Cadillac engine too. All right, but around the table, you've all seen the car, or at least seen pictures of it. The biggest gripe on the previous car was the interior. It was kind of retro, but it came out cheesy. A lot of people on this staff have not liked the short side glass. What about the side glass? Did you find visibility improved at all?
Visibility, I would say if it did, it's pretty minor. Yeah, I noted that's one thing I did notice, like getting out of spaces and just general driving, is that visibility is still fairly low, but the interior is nicer, so you kind of forget about the lack of visibility because everything else does look nicer.
How about you two? Because you've been big critics of the interior in the past.
The interior, I did take a peek at it. Did step it up a little bit, but overall, from the outside, I was hoping for a little more of a styling change. It was a little too evolutionary.
Yeah, I still can't quite tell difference between like the Gen 5 and the Gen 6. I mean, I look at the pictures and I know stuff has changed, but hasn't changed that much, so it doesn't really strike me as like totally brand new Camaro. I know it is,
but it's less of a change than what Mustang went through,
right? And I think that I personally would still go Mustang, and I know that a lot of people are still diehard. Like if they're Camaro, they're always going to be Camaro. If they're going to be Mustang, they're always going to be Mustang.
Well, Camaro's outsold Mustang, what, Brian?
5 years.
5 years in a row. But now, of course, this year Mustang's going to outsell Camaro. So the real tell is going to be next year. It's going to be 2016. And we'll have an SS. We're scheduled to get one at the track in Roebling in January. I
Should be awesome.
Wouldn't be surprised if we don't have one in here before then. Okay, moving on. I promised, even though I botched her title, our FYI reporter and producer, Lauren Morrison. Lauren is the newest member of our MotorWeek staff. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
But now tell everybody what you do and what you're going to be doing.
So,
because a lot of people don't really understand what the FYI segments are all about.
No, so really what I'm looking for is like any cool story around the country, any cool car-related story, any interesting little tidbit. I actually was just in North Carolina last week, found a great little inn called Gearhead Inn. This couple runs it. They've themed each of the rooms as a muscle car from the 60s. They get a lot of people it's right in the Blue Ridge Parkway area,
right.
So they get a lot of people driving, seeing their hotel, and coming in, stopping in. Really, really fun people, really great little inn that I found. So just looking for cool stories like that around the country, meeting great people, so I'm pretty excited.
The way we do our FYI segments is we sort of put a very flimsy line down the middle between what Zach Maskell does and Lauren's doing. Zach is a little bit more one person, one car, and a seat of the pants experience. And Lauren is a little bit more something that everybody out there can enjoy.
Exactly.
But it's a very gray area, and the most important thing is to have a good time.
I was going to say, sometimes I might step over that line into Zach's territory.
Folks that have done these segments in the past have been all over the place, and really what it comes back to is a great story that the audience loves watching.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So welcome to the staff.
Thank you.
And dive into these discussions. Okay, we're going to move now to our subcompact SUV challenge. Brian Robinson was the point person on that particular shoot, but almost everybody at this table, perhaps except Lauren, has had an awful lot of time in some of these subcompacts, the newest ones being like the HR-V and the 500X. So, Brian, let her rip.
Yeah, it was a little bit of different comparison because usually it's a segment that's been around for a long time and there's like certain established leaders. But this one, the segment hasn't even really been there that long, and 6 out of the 7 cars were all new for 2016. So a lot of, you mentioned the HR-V, Fiat 500X, Jeep Renegade, vehicles like that. I guess the prize was that the winner was
none of the above.
Right, it's something that many people wouldn't even put in there, but that's the Subaru XV Crosstrek.
What was the rationale of putting that in there? Was it just price or what?
I don't know. Obviously, Patrick doesn't agree, but I like that.
I like it too.
I think we all actually
doesn't strike me as a subcompact.
A lot of people like it.
Well, Subaru considers it an SUV, and the price cap was $27,000, which it came in. It was the cheapest vehicle there. It came in just at
and that's with all-wheel drive standard.
So yeah, and it just had a lot more room. The HR-V is the only one that has more room. And Subaru was just super comfortable, a lot of great features, and one of the few that you could actually take off-road a little bit if you needed to.
I like the HR-V, but I agree with your conclusion from the test in that the engine noise is just really kind of getting unacceptable.
Yeah, that was a big part of I guess it finished 4th or 3rd. I think 3rd. I think it finished in 3rd.
It was back in the pack,
It was
though.
in 3rd, yeah. And
that's right, 3rd.
On the practical aspect, it is so much space in there, but yeah, it's very noisy powertrain, wind noise, all kind of noise, and a lot of people didn't like the interior interface. Honda's gotten rid of any type of button or knob, which a lot of people aren't fans of.
Let me open this up though. These are all subcompact, crossover utilities, whatever you want to call them. Is this just another way of selling a subcompact car? Because after all, they don't have that much room. They really don't have that much except a little bit of bad weather capability with all-wheel drive.
It is another way, and it's a more profitable way for manufacturers to basically charge $5,000 or $6,000 more for what's basically a car and put all-wheel drive on it.
I felt that way, especially with the CX-3. I know I've beat up on it for several podcasts in a row.
I love that car too.
Well, I know. I thought that it literally was. You brought up in the road test. Is it a Mazda 3 hatchback, or is it? I mean, it's literally almost the same exact kind of thing. So I
with half the space as the Mazda 3 hatchback.
And so I don't buy it. I don't buy a lot of the stuff in this segment. I'm not a fan of it. That's all I'm going to say.
There you have it, folks.
It's kind of interesting that at the LA Auto Show, and actually it's already been shown in Frankfurt, is the Infiniti QX30 and the Q30.
Yeah,
And they
what a
they
bizarre,
followed the Subaru route. They basically took a car, raised it, stuck some bigger tires on it, and said, now it's an SUV, when it's exactly the same vehicle as the car, except the car only has front drive. And so they've obviously think there's something there that they can capitalize on.
Well, good on them. Yeah, if people are going to buy it, why not do it?
Yeah. That specific example, the car version is more for Europe because they buy small hatchbacks, which we don't.
But they're going to market it here.
We don't buy them unless they're crossovers, which the QX will be marketed more here.
Granted, but they're still going to sell them side by side.
They will sell it, but they're not. That's kind of where
that's where it's at. You think?
It could be. We have so many of these. I feel like we've been talking about these a lot on podcasts.
We have been talking about them a lot.
So I mean, everybody is obviously. I don't want to say copycatting off each other, but it's like they're trying to keep up in the industry. So they see another company's made one. We want to make one. Where do we trace it back to again? Like I can't even remember who was the first one to come out.
Well,
with it.
I said in our thing, I called the Nissan Juke the first one. That's my.
Well, I think that's
I don't know if that's correct or not, but that's the way I look at it. That's the first one to me.
Well, you could go back to Suzuki probably if you really look at
the modern era, though. I could say
the Juke, a super small, fun to drive, but totally impractical crossover is the Juke.
True story.
So
we have not heard from the lone woman in the group.
I know.
When it comes to small vehicles, is all-wheel drive like a paramount thing for you, or do you care?
I personally don't really.
You spend a lot of time in Maine.
Yes. So I mean, I guess I personally don't really care. It's not a deciding factor for me. But
is that because you know how to drive?
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess maybe my driving skills. I don't know. No. And I guess it really maybe just depends on what you're looking for too, like what you're going to be using it for. Like I'm not really, trying to go off-road or, I like to stay home when it snows. I'm not trying to get on the roads. But no, I mean, I guess it just really depends on what you're looking for.
When you are looking at a vehicle, though, have you reached the point where you're starting to be totally practical, or are you still out there having a good time with it and looking less at the practicality?
Oh, I don't want to be too practical. That's boring. But no, I mean, obviously you have to think about your day-to-day life. But
I know why we hired her now. So.
But no, I don't want to be, too practical, too boring. You want to get a little edgy.
All right. Well, speaking of edgy, I think we've all got something to say about the next car that's on our calendar today. The 2016 Mitsubishi Outlander, the largest crossover that Mitsubishi makes. And the gist here is the little company that keeps on coming back whether we want them to or not. They make very
sales are up,
sturdy.
Man.
Their sales are up
huge.
25% this year. They're doing it with constant updates to the Outlander and the Outlander Sport.
And the most fuel-efficient non-hybrid vehicle available in America, Mitsubishi Mirage.
That's right. So what do we think of the Outlander? Should it be a contender if for someone looking for a 5-passenger compact?
You actually can get a 7-passenger.
Yeah, you can get a 7.
Basically, but let's face it, that's third row.
That's really it's a two-trick pony. Basically, it has a V6 engine, which you can't get anywhere else in the class,
and
it's a standard third row, which you can't get in most places in the class. So that's pretty much.
Has anybody ever seen anybody use the third row seat in a compact? I mean, I have to ask. Who was the first one that did it? RAV4, and it was like that's impossible to put any. You couldn't even put a child seat in it. It looked like
it's kind of like all-wheel drive. It's emergency use only in these things.
I like this Outlander. I drove, I think it was like a 14 or something like that a couple of years ago when it was, I guess, brand new. I think I like it for the same reason that I like our Outlander Sport long term, is that it's no nonsense, pretty bare bones. It's not pretty to look at, but I mean it drives and it drives well, and it's got space if you need it. And I will say, the 14 one that I drove was one of the first vehicles I experienced full automatic braking in. Mm-hmm. So even if it's bare bones and boring and not necessarily advanced looking as other vehicles, they're working on their technology.
They do have some of the nicest shift paddles.
Yeah, and they got the column mounts.
And we all like that.
Wow.
I agree with you. I mean, I basically have watched Mitsubishi climb back out of its hole and been very impressed that they keep coming up with ways to make vehicles that are long in the tooth keep up with the pack. Mm-hmm. When I get into our long-term Outlander Sport, I think It's just what you said. This is a no-nonsense vehicle that I feel like I could depend upon at any time in almost any weather. And I felt the same way about the Outlander, the larger Outlander. I have to admit, I have no use for the third row, but I can see where that would be an attraction.
We did have the V6. I think that's all we've had in here is the V6. I don't know. Have we ever had a 2.4 liter engine?
I don't think so.
Well, that's what's in the Outlander Sport.
Yeah, it's the same motor from the Sport, which is, it's not terribly gutsy, but it's adequate.
Yeah, it's all right.
And as we pointed out in our last long term, we're doing almost 28 miles per gallon in the Outlander Sport.
That's pretty impressive.
We don't see anything that calls itself a crossover or a utility in here that does that very often. So,
and they've been teasing. I know the last handful of auto shows, they've been teasing concepts of maybe a next-gen Outlander, Sport or Outlander that's hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and they're relatively interesting-looking concepts. So, I mean, I'm sure they have some stuff in the pipeline.
They've got a hybrid coming.
And once they get more money, I think they'll be able to pump more money and resources into designing a more dynamic-looking car.
The little engine that keeps on giving.
Then the sporty cars come back, which would be cool.
Well,
that would be
next-gen Lancer.
Well,
next-gen Lancer.
Let's face it, everybody's bemoaning the loss of the Lancer. Alrighty, it's now time to turn to our lightning round. Basically, the panelists around the table have 2 minutes to debate a trending automotive topic, and when time runs out, they hear the bell. Patrick?
No.
All right, at the LA Auto Show, and even before the LA Auto Show, it was obvious that one of the cars or vehicles that was going to be taking a lot of notice is the Range Rover Evoque, wait for it, convertible. Why does a chop-top SUV exist? Remember, Nissan tried it a few years ago. Are we at the point where manufacturers are inventing new segments to gain attention? Do they really see a future in vehicles like this? Is it just because they've got too much money to spend? Is it too big a risk?
Did they learn nothing from Nissan?
Yeah.
What was the Nissan called?
The
Cross Cabriolet.
Cabriolet.
Basically a Murano.
Well, I mean,
they just chopped
it was just so awful.
There's
Anyway.
the Wrangler. I mean, there's certainly a market for convertible SUVs, right? I mean, I think they sell a few
This
of those.
is not even remotely close to
No.
the
That
same
comparison is a stretch, man.
What?
I'm sure they sold them in Florida.
Why is it not a comparison?
It's not to a Wrangler? No, well, but, the Evoque has been such an enormous success.
Yeah,
And,
it's their best-selling vehicle, isn't it?
It's their best-selling vehicle, and an awful lot of them have wound up in sunny climates because folks with money and retirement and so forth have gone there, and they've been buying them. But it does seem like a stretch.
I mean, do you think it's simply – it's hard to believe that they would spend this much money just to bring even more notoriety to that brand, right? You have to believe they actually believe in this car.
That's what I'm wondering,
right?
if they
They're
legitimately
spending this much money
believe
to develop a car.
Yeah.
I mean, Range Rovers have become the look-at-me car even more so in the last couple of years, and what better way to look at you more than with a drop top? So I'm sure there's going to be a waiting list.
I don't think anybody thought the Evoque would take off in this country journalistically because it was too low to the ground, didn't have that much room inside. It had style, and that seemed to be what it needed. Pardon?
Terrible headroom in the rear.
I mean, all of the above, and it's become a huge moneymaker, so why not do something to follow up? I don't think it's a trend, though. Do you? Really?
Well, you never know. Maybe Cayenne will come out with a convertible. You never. I mean, could be.
We were
a trend.
talking about it with the subcompact
possible,
SUVs. I mean, maybe one person take it. This is like the Nissan Juke of its,
of its
class.
It makes more sense to me in these Highline models than it does in the Nissan. So
Yeah.
Right, how many would they have to sell for you to consider it a success?
One.
Well, then the Murano Cross Cabriolet was a success.
they'll probably, if they sell 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000, that's going to be a huge success, probably.
and they will. Rental car companies will buy them up if nobody else does.
Yeah, but that's not the image they're looking for. Thank you.
It'd be an expensive
Saved
rental.
by the bill. Okay, well, we'll see how we'll check back and let you know how the Evoque convertible does. It's getting a lot of attention.
we're
If you look
talking
on the
about
internet,
it.
boy, it's all over the
It's
place.
like the whole Starbucks coffee cup thing.
Ridiculous. All right, a viewer question. Blake asks, what exactly happens when you engage different driving modes? We're always talking about in our road tests, sport, eco, etc. It's bothering him. It's probably bothering a lot of people. So What do we mean when we talk about a vehicle having driving modes, and what does it actually do to change how the car drives?
A lot of it just has to do with the throttle. I mean, throttle response, right? It's just if you go into an eco mode, it takes a lot more pressure on the pedal to actually get more performance out of the car. So it's really taking the driver element out of it to get that extra efficiency. Sport modes, same thing.
It changes your shift points and your throttle.
And each car is a little bit different. Some you can actually change the suspension settings, and like you said, shift points and everything like that. And other ones, it's just like
some change the steering. response.
Yeah.
Some change exhaust.
Even
tone.
exhaust noise, suspension settings, like you said.
So we're saying it's a lot more.
It's
soft. It's not real. A lot of them aren't mechanical.
No, well, you don't really have a mechanical throttle in the car anyway.
Yeah, true.
So it started off as a throttle thing and maybe shift points, but now it's up there to where it's affecting almost all of the systems. And several of the recent vehicles that we've tested, and
Camaro is really, I think there's like 11 or 12 things, depending on which mode, that gets adjusted when you automatically go from sport to.
Yep.
And you really felt it.
Yeah,
I didn't drive it.
Yeah, I felt it. Between I didn't really mess with the snow or ice mode, but yeah, between sport and touring, you feel everything tighten up a little. I mean, steering tighten up, throttle response is definitely up, and then the sound, they pump a little bit more sound in there, and that's, I think, slowly but surely more and more companies are starting to do that, where it actually affects the sound of the car.
Yeah, even a lot of them, interior lighting will change, gauges will change. I mean, it just depends
It's
on the
multiple
car.
personalities.
Yeah.
And then there's, I mean, you got some like the M cars where you can actually, instead of just going like normal sport or super or sport plus, you can individually change settings. Like if you just want a rough, stiff suspension and easy steering, you can do that.
Yeah, Audi does it with like their dynamic or individual setting.
If you want to beat yourself up, really, but I hadn't really thought of it until we were talking about it now. It's giving vehicles not just split but multiple personalities. So it's sort of like whatever you feel today. How do you want to be?
Yeah, and some of it works
handled?
and some of it doesn't. A lot of it comes off as pretty gimmicky, but
like
cheesy.
Hyundai steering controls.
I was going to say that I actually kind of like the Hyundai and Kia when they do that because there's
some
a noticeable
of them are so
feel.
heavy, though.
There's a noticeable feel
yeah,
between
but it's like
their
so
comfort
fake
and
and like unnecessarily
yeah, it's fake,
heavy.
It does exactly what you expect it to do.
So anyway, Blake, I
it
hope
can be
that
whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, man.
there you have it, Blake. It makes the car so it can be anything you want it to be at any given moment. I hope that kind of clarifies it. But this is evolving. We're not at the end of what drive modes can do yet. Remember when they used to just be a launch mode? That was the big deal.
I miss those days.
Yeah, me too. Okay, Rant and Rave. And by the way, anyone got something on their mind? Patrick's arm is up.
I got one.
Be edgy.
Rant and Rave today. Take it away, Patrick.
I'm going to rave about convenience features in vehicles. We had the new Explorer in recently.
Platinum.
The Platinum Edition. So granted, it was the top of the line. Most expensive, but it had massaging seats, which the S-Class has, right?
It's been around for a while.
Whatever, but I really liked it.
We haven't seen it in an FORD car.
Right, and I really liked it. I was doing drive-bys with Ben that day, so I was in the Explorer all day, and I guess I was in a weird seating position or something, but my back hurt. I took it home that night, too, and my back hurt. I thought, I'll just throw on this massaging seat function and see if it does anything. And it really worked. It really helped. It loosened my back up.
Is that a Ford shirt you're wearing? Or what?
Maybe if they didn't
That's just MotorWeek.
make the seats so bad that they gave you back.
That is true. They aren't very comfortable.
Don't have to rain on my parade. But all I'm saying is certain convenience features actually are convenient. The massaging seat function did its job, and it works really well. I liked it.
Even minor ones like auto-dimming rear-view mirrors that we've seen and forgotten about. Isn't that just wonderful?
I was trying to use this as a jumping off point.
Heated steering wheel.
Let me ask you something. Sticking with seats, and you mentioned heating steering wheel. Does anyone really get cooled seats?
I have used it in the summertime.
And do you like them?
Yeah,
I like
it a lot.
If they work, and if they're not super loud, sometimes they're really loud.
It feels good.
Yeah, I like the cycle between hot and cold.
Real wasteful.
Really cold.
Just like in real life.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that's pretty interesting.
No, but the convenience.
Some of them
features,
actually have a draft, like you feel like you're sitting in a wind tunnel.
I like that.
I know Greg's brought this up before, but keyless entry. I hate it when I've got to take my keys out of
Yeah.
my pocket.
The worst.
We've all
It's
gotten
Renegade
so
has it,
lazy.
man. And the key on the Renegade's so big.
It's unforgivable not to have it.
Right, these tiny little features that you don't even think twice about until they're not there.
So, question for you: the new Ford Escape has got a feature where, and it's not totally new to Ford even, but you're going to be, the whole vehicle will basically be integrated into your smartphone. So when you walk, you not only can find it in a parking lot and check the fuel and unlock
Can
it
you get that on
and
your
start
phone?
it
Like carry it
and
around in
do
the pocket?
all
That's
that
brilliant.
stuff. Is that appealing to you to be able to take your smartphone out and say, okay, where's my vehicle, or how much fuel's in it, or I could start it without, automatic remote start without actually having the key fob?
I like remote start.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's appealing.
I
But
guess
do-
if you're into just impressing your neighbors and then never using it again.
How you not?
It's not even what that's about at all.
This is a digital device era.
What
Yeah.
if you are Black Friday shopping? There's masses of people at the mall. You can't find your car. You can just whip out your cell phone.
And you just take out your cell phone and hit
I'm
the
totally
button.
on board for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I think that's going to spread like wildfire.
Freezing,
I'm all-
freezing
I'm all
cold.
on it.
You've seen that commercial or whatever it is. It was like old, but it was like a Buick thing. Like the guy's like flying
Buick?
into the airport and
That's
he
a Buick?
starts his
Oh,
car on his
yeah.
phone, which is, by the way, you probably couldn't do because you can't have your phone
Yeah.
in transmit mode while you're still
And
flying.
also just wasting fuel. I mean, it's going to
Yeah.
take, depending on which airport
exactly.
it's at, it's
It
going to take
could be
like
a
at
half
least
hour.
an hour.
If you
Oh,
were
yeah,
using
at
their
least.
Wi-Fi, you could.
Well, if it could autonomously drive and pick you up on the tarmac, that would
Perfect.
be
Yeah, I won't even own a car. Right?
Well, we'll see.
The future, man.
Yeah.
The future is here, like it or not.
Run for it, Marty.
Okay, I'd like to thank all of our panelists for around our table today. Brian Robinson, Ben Davis, Greg Carlos, Patrick Lucas. Lauren, welcome to the team.
Thank you.
And also our audio engineer, Jim Bigwood, who always makes sure that he edits out my mistakes. Our podcast creator, Bob Mixter. And, of course, the producer, the man with the bell, Patrick Lucas. Thank you, sir. Thank you all for joining us for our MotorWeek podcast. Be sure to watch MotorWeek on public television stations around the country and also on the Velocity channel. For all of us at MotorWeek, thanks for watching, listening, and just being a part of MotorWeek.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.